A day for myself. One morning I woke up early, long before my usual routine. The first thing I noticed was the sunlight streaming through my window, casting soft rays across the room. It felt like the world was inviting me to start the day slowly. I reached for my phone, as I always did, and saw a flood of messages, work emails, meeting reminders, and countless notifications. My heart sank a little. I knew that today would be no different from every other day. A blur of deadlines, calls, and endless tasks. But then, something inside me shifted. I decided that today would be different. Today, I would not work. At first, the idea felt strange, almost wrong. My life had become a constant cycle of work, meetings, and obligations. I was always on the go, rarely stopping to breathe or enjoy a moment. But I was tired. I felt like I had been running for so long. I had forgotten what it was like to simply exist. So, with a deep breath, I made a decision. Today, I was going to rest. I was going to be still. I slid out of bed, my feet touching the cool floor. I padded into the kitchen, put the kettle on, and made myself a cup of coffee. The smell of the coffee filled the air, rich, warm, and comforting. I sat by the window with my cup, watching the world outside. People hurried down the street, heads down, walking quickly as if there was some invisible deadline waiting for them. Cars zipped by in a hurry. The noise of the world swirled around me. But I wasn't in a rush. For the first time in a long time, I had no agenda. I had no meetings to attend, no calls to make, no emails to check. I had nowhere to be. It felt strange, yes, but it also felt incredibly freeing. I took a deep breath and smiled, allowing myself to enjoy the stillness. After breakfast, I went to my bookshelf and picked up an old book I hadn't read in years. The pages were soft and yellowed with age. I began to read, slowly at first, savouring each word. The story was peaceful, calming even, and I found myself getting lost in it. Time slipped away unnoticed. I didn't check the clock. I didn't care how much time had passed. The world outside may have been rushing on, but in that moment I was lost in a different world. One of quiet pages and gentle sentences. When I finished my breakfast, I decided to take a walk. The air outside was fresh and cool. The sun was warm on my skin, and the world felt alive. The trees were green, the flowers bright and vibrant, and the birds were singing from the branches above. I walked with no destination in mind, just enjoying the simple act of walking. I wasn't trying to get somewhere. I wasn't worried about being late or missing something. I stopped at a small cafe on the corner, the kind of place I would usually pass by without a second thought. But today, I was in no rush. The smell of fresh bread and coffee beckoned me inside. I ordered a cup of tea and found a quiet table by the window. The cafe was cozy, and I settled into the soft chair, letting the peaceful atmosphere wash over me. People around me were talking softly, laughing, reading, or simply lost in their thoughts. As I sipped my tea, I found myself observing them, wondering what their lives were like. I thought about my own life, the rush, the stress, the constant sense of urgency. I realized how long it had been since I had taken a moment to simply sit, to do nothing and enjoy the present. It was a nice feeling. After finishing my tea, I wandered back home. The street was as busy as it had been when I left, but I felt different. I wasn't thinking about emails or phone calls. I wasn't thinking about deadlines or responsibilities. I was thinking about the small things, the warmth of the tea, the quiet walk, the peaceful cafe. These simple moments, I realized, were what life was truly about. Back at home, I sat by the window again. The sun had begun to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I felt a deep sense of contentment wash over me. Today, I had not worked. I had not rushed. I had simply lived, and I knew I needed more days like this. More days to breathe, to rest, to enjoy life. Later in the evening, I felt the pull of something I hadn't done in a long time. Cooking. I used to love cooking, but it had become something I never had the time for. But today, I had time. So, I decided to make something special. I pulled fresh vegetables from the fridge, along with some rice. The kitchen was quiet as I began chopping, stirring, and seasoning. The smell of garlic and onions filled the room. As I worked, my mind wandered to the countless mornings when I rushed through breakfast, grabbing whatever I could before diving into the day's tasks. Cooking was something I used to find so comforting, but somewhere along the way, it had become just another chore. Today, though, it felt like a moment to savor. I set the table, placing the meal in front of me. The rich flavors filled my mouth with each bite, and I closed my eyes for a moment, savoring the taste. I wasn't rushing through the meal. I took my time, appreciating the food I had made and the care I had put into it. It felt so good to slow down. Afterward, I cleaned the kitchen, letting the warm water flow over my hands. The plates and cups gleamed under the light, and I found peace in the simple task of washing dishes. It wasn't a chore to me today. It was a moment to connect with my space, to appreciate the calmness that filled the room. I walked over to my bookshelf once more. There were so many books I had forgotten about, books I had promised myself I would read, but never had the time for. I picked one at random, a novel I had started years ago but never finished. The soft pages felt comforting under my fingertips as I opened the book. The words pulled me into another world. I read slowly, lost in the story. Hours passed, but I didn't care. I wasn't thinking about work or deadlines or what I had to do tomorrow. I was just living in that moment. enjoying the words, the characters, the world that had been waiting for me to return. Eventually, I turned off the lights and looked out the window. The night sky was full of stars. The world was quiet. I felt at peace. Today had been a good day, a day for me. I had not worked, I had not rushed, and I had taken time to simply enjoy the small things in life. I smiled, feeling content, as I settled into bed, knowing that I needed more days like this. Days where I could just be. The next morning, I woke up feeling different. I wasn't immediately overwhelmed by thoughts of work or responsibilities. Instead, I felt calm. The sunlight filtered through my window, gently waking me. I stretched, letting the softness of the morning fill me. I took a deep breath, appreciating the stillness. I had no rush today. No meetings, no calls, no deadlines. Just a new day to enjoy. I got up and made myself another cup of coffee, the rich aroma filling the air as I sipped it slowly, savouring each taste. I stood by the window, watching the world outside slowly come to life. People were already hurrying to work, cars speeding down the street, but I wasn't in a hurry. For the first time in a long while, I had nowhere to be. After breakfast, I decided to take a walk. The air was crisp, and the streets were quiet. I walked slowly, noticing things I had never seen before. The texture of the old brick buildings, the vibrant flowers in window boxes, the sound of a street musician playing a soft tune on the corner. Everything seemed more alive, more beautiful, simply because I had stopped to notice it. I stopped at a small park, sat on a bench under a tall tree, and closed my eyes for a moment, listening to the rustling of the leaves and the sound of children playing nearby. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to be anywhere. I could just be here, in this moment. When I opened my eyes, I wandered into a small bookstore nearby. The smell of paper and ink greeted me as I stepped inside. I ran my fingers over the spines of the books, picking one up and feeling the texture of the cover. I sat in a quiet corner of the store and began reading. Once again, time passed unnoticed. I was lost in the story, in a world far from the hustle and bustle of my own life. I could have stayed there all day, but eventually I knew it was time to leave. I bought the book and walked out of the shop, feeling a sense of peace and contentment that I hadn't felt in ages. The sky was turning a soft orange as I made my way home. The evening air was cool and everything felt peaceful. I had spent the day doing nothing important by society's standards, but it felt meaningful. I hadn't been rushing. I hadn't been working. I had simply lived. As I walked back into my apartment, I smiled, knowing I had found something valuable. Life wasn't just about work or accomplishments. It was also about taking time for yourself, about enjoying the little moments that often go unnoticed. That night, as I lay in bed, I reflected on the past 2 days. I had spent so many years believing that success was about being busy, about constantly working. But now I saw things differently. Success wasn't about being busy. It was about being present. It was about slowing down, enjoying life, and finding joy in the simple things. I promised myself that I would never forget this lesson. No matter how busy life became, I would make time for me. Time to rest. Time to breathe. Time to live. With that promise in my heart, I closed my eyes and drifted off to sleep, feeling more at peace than I had in a long time.